Now, this morning we continue our discussions and we are talking all about what's happening here on the island of Tobago during this year's Tobago Heritage Festival. And this morning I have the privilege of chatting online with Mrs. Marsha Gomes-Mckie. Good morning and welcome. Good morning.
Hi,
So
good
this
morning.
morning we are talking about, one of those exciting events that are taking place as it pertains to the keeping literary traditions alive. There are workshops that would be taking place related to the industry. There have been a number of these workshops that has already happened as it pertains to script writing and you name it. And this morning we are chatting about what you would be doing as a part of those workshops this morning. Now, for the persons who are not too familiar with the work that you have been doing, you are a publisher, illustrator, author, and a regional advisor. Tell us this morning about what we can expect coming out of some of your exciting workshops that are happening as a part of the celebration of the 2025 Tobago Heritage Festival.
Okay, so last weekend I started what I partnered with the Trinidad and Tobago Writers Guild, and we had a workshop on folklore, which is one of the things that I really love. So folklore is my passion. If you could see behind me, I have like the Papa Boa. So
Yes.
definitely the workshop focus on heritage and folklore is one of those things. We launched on the 12th of July, which was actually Caribbean Literature Day. It was started in 2020. Nessie Publishers. So we decided to have the event on that day, the 12th, which so that we could commemorate Caribbean Literature Day. It's celebrated the 12th annually. And Caribbean, being the founder of Caribbean Books Foundation, it's something that I like to support, to support the other literature incentives in the region because they support us when we do Caribbean Folklore Month. So definitely, it's
Brian,
something that we want to continue doing.
tell us a bit about what happened during your session and, what persons were exposed to.
Okay, so during our session, we talked about folklore for the modern age, not just folklore. We have the oral tradition coming out, but I try to emphasize that folklore is owned by everyone in the Caribbean. Folklore cannot be copyrighted. All of the characters are ours, and we should feel comfortable developing them for the modern age. A lot of times people tell me, those are characters and the youths aren't going to they aren't going to be interested in those type of characters. And it's because the writers of today is not writing folklore for the youth. The writers of yesterday, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, they wrote for their audience. They wrote for the slaves. They wrote for making most of these stories. So you wouldn't go out in the night. Yeah. So it has that theme to it. But the writers of today, we can't just take these stories of old. We have to take our stories and believe in ourselves as scribes and make these stories relevant to today. So I admonish them to put some technology in the folklore. Papa Boy is in the forest, but I envision Papa Boy with a room with a nice GPS and he's thinking of the modern times. Something that the children could relate to, something that when you read it, you would say, okay, this is really bringing it forward. And all mythology, Caribbean is mythology. All mythology went through that. That didn't just stay in the past, they actually evolved. Because look at Marvel, you see everything evolving. Look at Greek mythology. If you read Greek mythology 100 years ago and you read Greek mythology today, it's not so much a completely different story, but they brought it into today's setting, which is the important thing. So the writers of today is responsible for putting folklore into these settings. And that is very important. And then it will be relevant to everybody.
Right, I'm glad that you mentioned that, and I'm glad that you mentioned a bit about, Greek mythology, and we look at shows like Thor and, all these other films that are based on, ancient characters, but, set in a modern setting, or at least, in a setting that is more palatable, to today's audiences, even when it comes to, being on the big screen. So, do you theorize, or do you have a vision of you having those big movies where some of the characters in those movies are some of our traditional folklore characters?
Oh yes, I think the market is open, and Trinidad, not just Trinidad, but the Caribbean, we have a group of characters that are really unknown, and it's really up to us to take this group of characters and make a I call it a folklore verse, and take these characters and make them marketable enough that they will be added, because people are always looking for characters, right? But you, as the writer, you have to promote it, and you have to market it in such a way that somebody will say, okay, we can use this in a film. This could be one of our villains. This could be one of our heroes. So we really have to go through the process of going through our character list and making it more marketable for this century. And I don't think it's something that we cannot do. I think it's something that we are up to the challenge. And as we start to write more about our characters, and our characters appear in film, because there's the Trinidad and Tobago Folklore Festival, and it appears more in film, and we're pushing it, and it's more out there, then those characters will be picked up globally. And I think it's really for us now to make a plan and strategize to get these characters out and show what these characters can do. Because our characters are wonderful. They're radiant and vibrant, and they are absolutely wonderful.
Right, and even tell us about some of your international connections and why it's important for, young persons within the industry locally to get their work done and increase the quality of the type of writing and the type of work that they are doing to get internationally recognized and possibly get greenlit for one of those big movies.
Definitely. Well, I am the regional advisor for the Society of Children Book Writers and Illustrators. Um, so I work in Caribbean South, and there's so much information out there. When I look at that organization, they have like for children's book writers, they have like two big events per year, and it really is where all the editors and the agents and the illustrators is where they are. So sometimes you have to reach out and network on a different level internationally, and see where, for example, if you, I know we have an animation event, an anime event coming up. So you follow the international anime events as well. And because those are the places where the agents for fantasy and paranormal are going to be, and you're going to get your foot in there. So it's good doing social media and digital marketing, but it's also good being strategic. So I tell people, if they want to do a children's book, even a book that's written about Papa Bo or Mama Delo, you get into the Society of Children Book Writers. You go to an event where there's an agent that promises to read your work, and they will read your work. You have a month to send in your work, and that is how you're getting. So you might see a lot of times that people, they aren't taking submissions, they aren't reading. But if you follow them and they are teaching at an event, they will read if you attend that event. So it really is working strategically and seeing where the opportunities are and making sure that you get in.
Right.
Um,
And even
so
as
so
it
that's
pertains to these workshops, it's so important and critical for young persons, early writers to get the type of exposure specifically from persons like yourself with the experience and the passion for the industry. How important is it for, organizations like the Tobago Writers Guild and the Tobago House of Assembly and even, NALIS to support these type of initiatives moving forward and partner with you and other creatives to help drive the industry by providing these type of capacity building seminars and workshops?
it is very important. Right now, I'm doing analysis, co-hosting a workshop with me. They're providing the venue, so they're sponsoring it, and we're doing a writer series, and we're focusing on marketing. And Alice does that with me every year. um, and supporting writers. And writers come out with so many questions because sometimes when you're self-publishing, you feel alone and you're not too sure what works and what doesn't work. And when you have a group, and it's a free session, it's not a paid session. And when you have a session where you could come and you could just ask questions that has been, you're not sure what you're doing, but you have a group of people there that would help you. That makes a world of difference. And since I've been doing that writer series every year between July and August and August, I've seen so many of the writers during the year publish, and they send me a note and say, look, I've published my book, or they invite me to a book launch. And it really was because they came and they asked the questions, and somebody else in the room may have been able to help. And it really is important for NALIS and for like Tobago as House of Assembly and for the different groups to just provide those spaces where writers are comfortable and writers could come and ask questions and could say, well, okay, I've nearly finished my book. What do I do now? I'm not sure how to finish this book. Anybody had that problem? What did you do? How can I, which bookstores are you going in? Who is the contact? And I see people giving each other so many contacts. So if they have an illustrator, they give the illustrator information. So just having that that setting where you can ask questions whenever you're stumped, I think it's really great. And for it to be facilitated by NALIS or Tobago Library, it gives the writers more confidence to go forward and produce books. And I
And
think over the past years, I've seen so many more books come on the market.
excellent. And even to our viewers now that are watching who have that idea to write a book, but they don't feel like, anybody would be interested or what they have to write is interesting enough. What do you have to tell them to encourage them? And how can they reach out to you to access your services to complete the process or, just add a little flavor to what is already there?
I would say to them that they are worthy. Your story is you alone can write your story and write it well. Be confident in your story. And with writers, I always tell them to write the first draft out fully. Don't edit yourself. Silence that inner critic. Um, don't think too much about description or anything like that. Just write. Write until you finish your story because you have to have a product. And once you have that product, that manuscript in your hand, then you can go through the second draft and edit it and ask questions. But try and write first without thinking too much about it because then it will take years to write your story. So give yourself about 3 months and just write your story from the beginning to end, and push. And if you're stumped, just leave that and keep going. So I will tell writers, you are worthy, your story is worthy, and we want to hear your story. Your story might be the next big hit. So definitely keep writing and push yourself to finish your story because it's only you can finish that story.
Excellent. Well, we want to thank you so much for your time this morning, and we want to thank you for the work that you have been doing both in Trinidad and Tobago and throughout the region to help drive the industry and trying to keep folk alive by adding that modern twist to today's writing. Again, we want to say thank you to you. We hope that the persons who would have attended your sessions would have, learned a lot and enjoyed that as well. And we hope to see you again soon in Tobago doing much more of the work. And again, thank you to the Tobago Writers Guild for these sessions. We're going to take a quick break right here and we'll be back right after this as we continue more conversation on all that's happening here on the island of Tobago, specifically during this Tobago Heritage Festival time and much more. See you soon.